Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our morning webinar provided. This is going to give you some details about how you can detect and defend in a hybrid world with Citrix Secure Private Access. Just to give you a couple of pointers before we start the webinar, this webinar is being recorded. So if you need to drop off at any point, you'll be able to pick it up as a recording. And we are able to take questions at the end, so please submit any questions you've got throughout the webinar, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end where we'll be able to come back to you. Alternatively, you can submit some questions after the event, and we should be able to come back to you separately. There'll also be a survey at the end of the webinar, and these are really good for us to just get some feedback as to how you thought the webinar went, so we can continue to bring good, valuable webinars to you in the coming months and years. So just to give you a bit of context as to what the webinar really will be about, we see Citrix very much as a large player in the modern workplace. They have a new groundbreaking advancement in intelligent and adaptive security without the need for a virtual desktop infrastructure, which is what Citrix have typically been known for throughout the ages. So this new service is called Secure Private Access. We're extremely excited about it. It's a built upon Citrix's secure zero trust network, and it's a cloud-native, fully integrated security stack that enables secure access to applications for users, and it protects networks from threats. So it's a very unique ZTNA solution. We're extremely excited about it. Citrix are extremely excited about it. We just hope that you feel the same after you see the presentation and the demo that our guys are going to be taking you through today. We're very pleased to be able to invite Justin Thorogood and Andy Scott from Citrix, and hopefully you guys are all set to be able to blow us away with this new technology that is being brought to market from Citrix. So welcome Justin, welcome Andy.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today.
Yeah, thanks very much. Should be good.
So, well, what a great intro. I think the deck is complete. Thanks for joining, everyone. No, brilliant. Thank you, Peter, for the great intro. And, you know, this year for us as Citrix is definitely a year for moving forward. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Citrix as a vendor. And, you know, effectively, we've been providing secure access to virtualized applications pretty much for the last 30 years. And it's something that we've done, you know, very confidently. You know, we've been at the forefront, I guess, of being able to mobilize work, you know, regardless of the device of choice. But the challenge I think we all had was that Citrix was always coined, and our phrase was the future of work. And you know, then unfortunately COVID hit us, and all of a sudden the future of work became very much the present of work. And I think we all felt it, didn't we? I mean, there were customers of ours that were FedExing desktops to, you know, employees' houses. We had instances of some of our Citrix partners that were providing, you know, a financial incentive to go to the local, you know, local store like a Currys, pick up a device. And of course, you know, if you're in a situation where, you know, you've got a certain amount of money to go and procure a device, you may look for, you know, to try and obviously optimize that experience, try and save the company some money. And we had instances where, you know, customers were out, they were buying a low-cost device, they were getting it home, opening up the screen, and guess what? It didn't have Windows on it. Oh dear. So we found I think a lot of customers found themselves in a situation where they were sat at home, they were on the phone to the help desk, they were trying to get some form of connection to the office in place. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of our customers actually really struggled. And, you know, Citrix as a vendor, obviously those customers that had adopted, you know, virtualized infrastructure, whether they be virtualized apps or virtualized desktops, were very, very quick to mobilize and procure additional licenses. You know, I wouldn't say pain-free, but certainly it was a lot easier to adapt. whereas we found ourselves actually really getting in the trenches with some of our other customers who were really struggling to get those non-virtualized users mobilized. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of our customers were at the point where they had to deploy a quick solution, just to get working. And what we're starting to see now, very much so, is those customers now evaluating the solutions they put in. So whether it would have been a point solution, or whether it was the fact that they deployed, potentially quite a costly solution that may have been overkill. And we're at a point now where we do have customers kind of questioning, actually, do we really need Citrix? We've moved a lot of stuff to the cloud, we're consuming SaaS applications, and we do have some customers, that have been with us a very long time, potentially using, relying on Citrix because they've got some very old applications in place. Believe it or not, we do have customers that are still using DOS-based applications and using quite dated versions of Citrix. And, you can imagine that that's not a brilliant experience, for an employee, especially if you're in a situation where, that experience is particularly slow. You go away, you can make a cup of coffee and come back and still the application hasn't loaded. We would very much love those customers to migrate that on-premise application and maybe consume, whether it's a new cloud native solution or a SaaS application that effectively replicates, what that application does. And of course, if that is the case and you're moving to SaaS, how are you going to provide access to that application securely without actually having to send all of your information through the data center, which is typically how most of our customers connect to their network and connect to work. So this is a great opportunity for us and Bytes to be engaged in a conversation with you, understand, how do you plan on delivering hybrid work? As I said, as Peter said, many of you as existing Citrix customers, have relied on Citrix for many years. You've maybe potentially looked at alternative vendors to provide access to those SaaS and cloud-based applications, or where you've migrated those on-premise applications and are now delivering them from a cloud platform. It's how do you deliver all of those security controls, stuff that Citrix has been doing for some time, and effectively remove those shackles, provide those very same security controls that you've relied on Citrix for many years, but apply it to any application. Be able to potentially even provide direct access from home using, the employee's broadband to access those internet-based applications directly. And this is all now possible with what Citrix are doing. So Citrix really does play a major part in delivering, cloud and secure work models. And, we've been at the forefront of providing modernization within the data center for many years. Citrix has got an enterprise class application delivery controller, and we continue to innovate in that space. Boosting worker productivity, clearly, if you can work from anywhere on any device in any location, that's pretty useful. But if you can remain productive and deliver a good user experience, that is, incredibly important. But the piece we're going to focus on, a little more today is this empowering secure distributed work. How do we deliver applications in a timely fashion to all of your employees while keeping both the business secure and the employee experience secure as well? But Citrix, as I said, we're leaning on a 30-year legacy. We sit across a large portion of the Fortune 500, very well favoured, of course, by the analysts. But every market that we focus our time and effort on, we make sure that we deliver a solution that is, enterprise class, but scales all the way down to the SMB. And it's, we've in those industries that we've played in, we've been incredibly successful. And, certainly from a virtualized desktop infrastructure and a secure access perspective, we've been proud to say that we have been in the Gartner leading quadrant for as long as there has been a quadrant in this particular space. And again, we're leaning on that heritage in order to deliver security, effectively secure access for absolutely everybody. So as I said, this is the area that we're going to be focusing in on today in this empowering of secure distributed work. Because look, we've all have challenges. The pandemic has taught us that employees want to have, a good quality of life and also have good quality of work, a work environment that's conducive to, to delivering, the productivity gains that many of us have enjoyed, being a lot more effective during the working day, maybe being able to drop the kids off at school in the morning, but being able to take, still being able to take breaks while still maintaining that, a productive day. And, we work as a vendor with some incredibly challenging environments. I'm sure for those of you that are F1 fans, you'll be very familiar with the Red Bull Racing team, a team that we've actively sponsored for the last 5 years. They operate in an incredibly challenging environment, and data is key. Application access is key. And when you are trackside, in a shared, effectively a shared connection environment, getting that information back to base to make critical decisions is so important. There's a team of 200 engineers that are measuring, I think it's in the region of 1,100 sensors on the car, and clearly making decisions in a timely fashion is incredibly important. But it's all about teamwork. And teamwork is also very much ever present in our businesses, and the ability to be able to deliver distributed work, be able to meet employees' needs. And I think it's fair to say that many who have embraced, being able to work from home and remain productive, and they want to continue to do so. We're starting to see this, certainly with the people we're interviewing as we grow our business, that this is actually a common question that is now being asked is, can you offer flexible working? Can I be productive at working from home? Are you going to provide me the tools and the device that will enable me to be able to do my job properly? And that's of paramount importance, in terms of delivering that hybrid work message. Because I am certainly one of these individuals. The things that frustrate us, that we're using a device, we're logging in on the VPN, it feels like it's very slow. It doesn't feel like it's an optimized experience. Potentially, I can't use my own device if my main device fails. I was one of those during the pandemic where my work laptop died. I was very fortunate in the sense that I could use my son's laptop, and I fired up my Citrix client, and I was able to connect to all of my web and SaaS applications, along with obviously my virtualized desktop environment, which was incredibly important. But security just seems incredibly complicated just to access work, and it needn't be that case. And I think when we're at home and things are slow, I think we all get incredibly frustrated. Because I think we have a basic expectation, don't we, as employees? We want the potential to be able to work from anywhere on potentially on any device, regardless of role. We obviously expect that service to be performant and reliable. Obviously, if it goes down, obviously I'm working at home, I'm now completely unproductive. But of course, if you're providing access to information, you're providing access to data, you want to ensure that that data doesn't go anywhere it shouldn't, and that people only have access to the information they need. So they may have access to more when they're in the office, they may have access to far less when they're out, and you want to have the security controls in place to put challenges in there, especially if activity looks irregular. So just to sum things up very quickly before I hand over to Andy, who's going to talk us through how the infrastructure is pieced together. So we have the endpoints and end user experience. So as Peter said at the beginning, we've been delivering virtualized apps and desktops for the last 30 years, and we've been reasonably successful at delivering that. But what we've done is we've taken the shackles off now. It no longer needs to be a virtualized infrastructure. All those security controls that we have been developing are now available for any SaaS, any web application that the company needs to provide to those employees, regardless of the device that they're accessing from. So effectively a control plane where we can control access to on a per application basis with controls in place, so that effectively we deliver a full unified experience and provide you with all the controls, visibility and analytics across multiple locations and multiple clouds, to give you the peace of mind needed to be able to offer hybrid work to every single one of your employees. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to take you through how is this actually all pieced together, and he's going to do this in the form of a whiteboard. So Andy, I'm going to hand this over to you and give you you've got mouse control now as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks very much for that, Justin. So yeah, I thought it's really interesting. A lot of the things you said, I can totally get that whole thing about having some resilience, be able to switch to different devices. That's really handy. But I mean, I suppose the thing I find is that people tend to have multiple devices these days. So it's as the kind of logo says on the left there, you typically you've got I'm using my phone for a lot of authentication stuff with Google Authenticator and some of the Citrix apps, I've got a laptop, and then there's also a tablet, so I can kind of switch between them based on kind of, and that's all context sensitive. So it's kind of like, depends on where I am as to which one of those is going to be the appropriate one. And then I see what Citrix has, and I think, you know, what they offer to Justin and I as employees is a kind of range of things. So they've got stuff hosted in their own data centers, because that's what everyone used to do. You used to have your own data center. They've got some stuff which they stick it up in cloud, and then we sign up to some SaaS apps for certain things, like things like holidays. We use Workday, so that's not a sort of IT sanctioned, you know, it's something that Citrix IST signed up with. We use as this SaaS service. With the data's held in the SaaS bowl, so it kind of means that, you know, we don't need to actually. What we need is a system that allows us to kind of get access to each of these components. I think the other thing is, I don't know if you see this, but when you talk to customers or partners or anyone involved in IT these days, they're pretty well informed. I mean, generally people are so much better informed about what's going on, what's happening, and it's quite scary actually. You can follow someone on something like Twitter, for instance, and you can get a pretty decent idea about something. It feels a bit like stalking in some respects, but you get an idea about what they're up to, what are their interests, and the rest of it. And I think the thing about the web is that it's a really powerful resource. You know, there's lots of really good stuff in it, but at the same time, there's some stuff that, unless you know what you're looking for, it's quite easy to fall foul of. So it's trying to find that balance where you're saying, well, I want to use it, but I don't want to bring bad stuff into my environment. And as the slide says, there's a bunch. This architecture, this kind of layout is, you know, Justin mentioned sort of VPN, and talk a bit about VPN as a solution. VPN, it works really well, but the problem is we're VPNing into, say, the DC, where actually I need access to something in a different cloud environment. So you think, well, actually, maybe that's not the best solution. And also, you've got things like malware now. So, you know, if you're connecting into an environment, you always want this principle of least privilege. I mean, I read some comment the other day talking about zero trust network access is least privilege in a different jacket. You know, it's got a different raincoat, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But, you know, ZTNA is popular because it locks down access. It's just allowing access to the bits you need to, and then blocks everything else off. So whitelists are always much better than a blacklist because you can be very much more descriptive about it. So malware and kind of ransomware and whole data loss, as those risks are stated, they're all key issues that we've got to sort of cater for these days, and all of them lead to costs to a business. So, you know, malware been introduced by someone remotely potentially coming into your environment, it then spreads through your infrastructure and infecting lots of different machines, and that potentially can lead to then ransomware. Data loss, they extract all your data. They've seen some really famous cases of that. And then the internal threats one, I thought that was a really interesting one. Justin and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things he was saying to me is that a lot of the recent threats that have come out have actually been insider threats. So they're not necessarily been external attacks, but people have brought stuff into the environment unknowingly, potentially. And that has led to challenges from a kind of IT security perspective. And then there's the whole thing about user experience. I mean, Citrix is always been about trying to give or deliver the best user experience, irrespective of the kind of network conditions. So poor performance, poor reliability, they're all key things for us to try and address as part of this infrastructure. And then that last one is like an inconsistent access policy. Again, if you've got multiple environments, you kind of want a single place to set policy and have that carried over, irrespective of device, location, or target that the user is going to get to. So there's a couple of things there. So I've talked at length about some of the challenges. So kind of what are we going to do? What are we going to offer that helps address some of this? So they've all been shortened, these names. So Citrix Secure Internet Access is a cloud-based proxy, effectively, with a whole load of security controls. So that provides some management and control of kind of web and SaaS connections. So you can do some really good stuff about allowing people access to things, but being quite granular about it. And then the thing that we're going to talk a bit more about today is this secure private access. The C is Citrix again. So secure private access, I think it's a big change for Citrix, because Citrix has always been about virtualizing as a solution. But ultimately, within the virtualization space, as good as virtualization is, there's some use cases that don't really lend themselves to being virtualized. I mean, sometimes virtualization is a bit of overkill considering the type of connection that you want to get access to. So I think it's awesome that we can augment what we've always done with some other options to sort of give you that choice to go with another way of solving that problem. And then, so in terms of the controls, I've got secure internet access. So my kind of outbound connections to the internet are kind of protected. And then my access to specific apps are also controlled by another cloud service. And then this whole thing is underpinned by our Citrix analytics service. So we run that in our cloud service, and it takes a look at all the things you're going to be doing. And it just says, well, you know, I get a view on where you are, and that analytics then feeds back into the product. So for instance, secure private access, you can use things like risk score for the ZTNA access. So you can sort of be quite granular. So rather than having an on-off switch to say access or no access, you can make context aware, device aware, and you can kind of say, well, based on these conditions, this is my kind of threshold for where I want to allow certain types of access. And it's not clear cut. So, you know, you might have secure internet access feeding into certain things that are outbound from the DC, and also we can do SaaS apps from secure private access. So there's kind of crossover between the products, because there's lots of different areas in which they fit. So a couple of different ways that all fits together. So those are the kind of things. Now, what I've got here is a kind of user-based walkthrough. So, and the reason this is quite handy is because everybody wants to see what's it going to look like from a user's perspective. So if I kind of step in, so I've got two screens. So the one on the left, it's got an extra passcode challenge. So that's the untrusted device. So this is the case where Justin's work machine's died, and he's just pulled out a laptop from somewhere and he's just using it. So we don't necessarily trust the device. On the right-hand side, we can see that we've detected that it's a trusted device. So in this case, they've relaxed some of the authentication options to say, oh, okay, we know the device, we know where the apps that this has got, so we can be a bit more trusting in terms of its access. So if I kind of step it on, we do the authentication, we log in, and you can see straight away that I've got a very similar look and feel between the two devices, but on the untrusted device, the not trusted, I've got a slightly shorter list of apps that I can go to. And that's because on the trusted device, we're going to allow certain apps, certain types of data is going to be allowed on that device. And if I open something on the not trusted, we can see that I've opened a web app. This time it is Workday, actually, which I was talking about as a SaaS app earlier. And it's got the logo for the kind of hosted browser. So this session isn't running on the device at all. We've abstracted it completely from the device, and we're running it on a browser that Citrix is running on behalf of this user. So nothing touches device. And we've also watermarked the session. So if he starts to get a bit, wants to take some pictures and post them online, we're going to know exactly who's done that. So we've got some things about clipboard access controls. So we've sort of we've blocked some of the controls between the browser session. So it's running totally isolated from the device, which is quite handy. We do the same thing on the trusted device. And in this case, it just pops up in another browser tab. Again, the device is trusted. There's no watermarking. Pretty likely, it's probably going to have clipboard access as well. And And so it gives you the same kind of access to the app, but it's just got slightly different security context around it. And if we look at virtual desktops, you can see there's a slight difference between the two desktops types that you get. So the AMS desktop on the trusted machine just isn't available on the untrusted device. And then when I go in, again, it's been watermarked so that you know this untrusted device has got a certain level of access. And when we do it from the trusted device, again, a bit more trust, no watermark, so we're quite happy. So this is like an extension. So what if, so I had my untrusted and my trusted, and I kind of walk through kind of connections. And then if I go in again, this is on a trusted login. So I'm logging in on a trusted device. And I've got my list of apps. So that all seems the same. What's different? What's the, well, I've got some doctor information. So I've got some patient data. And now we've banged on watermarking. So even though the device is trusted, we're saying, well, actually, the type of data we're dealing with here is way more sensitive. I can't be, even if it's on a trusted device, I need to put some security controls around it. And then I pull up certain things like Workday, and it just pulls it up in a browser tab, so that's fine. But then what about social media? So Twitter, in this case, we've again used the hosted browser. So rather than running it local on the trusted device, we're running this in Citrix's own data center. And it's this little logo up by the sort of address bar that tells me this isn't actually running locally, because we want to abstract social media from the devices, because we just don't trust our data. So the use cases I've shown have been trusted and untrusted device access to web and SaaS apps, and that's all been fine. I've got various things around that, but they're not the only apps that people use these days. So obviously, in this case, this is more of an administration type use case. So the guys or the lady's got putty to get access to some sort of network device. So he's on the 192 network, so he's working from home potentially with his machine, and he wants to get access to this SSH target, but he doesn't have a VPN. We've got no access, and this is SSH, so we can't use the option to just use a browser, because it's a different protocol. So we use the secure access Citrix secure access agent. So it's trusted device, username, password. We do some logging in, and it establishes a secure access connection. So this connection is going to be a specific target, specific protocol, and a port to give them access to this use case. So I've established a connection. I've done my authentication, and now I get the option to do a login. So I've got my whole access scenario. So I've covered off sort of trusted and untrusted device access to SaaS and web apps. And I've also covered off the use case where maybe you're doing something a bit outside of the web protocol. So in this case, port 22, putty access to get access to something. And that was really what I wanted to sort of roll through today, just to sort of show the kind of whiteboard, to show what goes on with what it looks like from a user perspective, and what problem we're trying to solve with our technology. Now I think it's back to you, isn't it now, Justin? We've done the demo, so I guess move it on to that. No, it's broken.
You press the home button. That's all it is. We just need to go back through your demo slides. It's fine. But yeah, very, very informative. I think, as you can see, everything really does depend on the device itself, the location of the individual, and obviously their credentials and the challenges that you put in place. So you can see how that we've utilized the experience that we've gained working with those, potentially, quite sensitive data within a virtualized environment. We've applied the same logic to the delivery of hybrid work, because ultimately people would like device choice, they would like to choose where they work, and this provides the ideal mechanism and the security controls so that you can keep both data safe and the individual safe, potentially from themselves. So in terms of where is the opportunity for you as a customer? First and foremost, I'm sure many of you are working on a hybrid work strategy. How do you deliver applications to your employees, regardless of where they are? Potentially, are you looking slightly further afield to acquire new employees? And certainly the ability to be able to offer hybrid work is certainly a compelling reason for them to come and join your company. We have certainly seen a resurgence in bring your own device, especially for certainly the younger generations, the graduates that are coming out of university, many of which are not so familiar with Windows, have been using devices like MacBooks, like Chromebooks. They have a certain expectation of what the company they'd like to work for and the device they would like to use. I'm sure many of you have had challenges with that in the past. We at Citrix certainly had. But of course, there are new applications, there are new technologies constantly being delivered to market, new innovation, and the potential, as I said earlier in my presentation, the ability to retire some old legacy applications that you've had to hang on to because there is a certain process or procedure that relies on that application. And then, of course, I mentioned here customer consolidation. This has been universal across the board. As you look to kind of retire appliances within your data centers, whether it's to reduce power or because you have an equivalent service that can be delivered. I mean, if you are an existing Citrix customer and you're already utilizing our technology, I would strongly suggest if you are looking at hybrid work and you want to deliver those security controls to the rest of your business, potentially there are a lot of point products that you have currently within your data center that potentially could be consolidated and for us to deliver, as I said, using our security control plane in the cloud. But if there is anything that we have learned certainly over the course of the last 12 to 24 months is that our customers, they don't buy solutions anymore. They're not looking for a solution stack. What you're really looking for us is the delivery of an outcome. And that is where our partnership with Bytes kind of stands head and shoulders above many relationships, is the fact that they are also tuned into delivering outcomes for you, their customers. But if we can deliver outcomes and we can reduce risk at the same time, then that's a conversation that we would love to be having with you in terms of how you deliver on the promise of hybrid work. But yep, very much this year is about owning collectively success. And what we would do is we would love to share that success with you in terms of that the delivery of that hybrid work vision. And partnerships like we have with Bytes are paramount to that. So look, in terms of the content from Citrix today, that's what we had to cover. But I'd like to hand over to Pete now, who's going to talk to you a little bit about an event that's coming up and an opportunity for you to come meet with us and actually see the product live. So Pete, I'm going to hand over to you, mate.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, and thank you, Andy. Really, really interesting demo that. And I think what's interesting about it is, like you highlighted, employees are increasingly using their own devices for work. So I think the fact that these devices that are unprotected and unmanaged are coming onto the network in some fashion where they are accessing cloud and SaaS and web-based apps from these devices, it's creating a threat. So this is something that, if you're not considering as a threat to your business at the moment, certainly, you need to start thinking about how this possibly is going to be something you need to start considering. And it's good that Citrix have got something in place that really covers that. So very interesting. Thanks a lot, guys. Just before we cover off some of the questions that have come in from the attendees, just as Justin highlighted, we've got some things to just call out. We've got an in-person event that we want to just bring to your attention on the 28th of June. It's called The Future of Work Is Now. So this is going to be a really interesting hybrid event that we'll be hosting from the Four Seasons Trinity Square in London, but also online if you still want to be able to access that remotely. But we'd really would welcome you along to that. It's going to be a really good event that sort of covers off a number of different areas of focus. We'll have a number of key vendors there, including Microsoft, Citrix, Lakeside, iGel, looking at a number of different areas in which you can really focus in on this modern workplace theme for your business. Just also want to highlight the fact that in terms of the Citrix and Bytes partnership, we did make a bit of a shout about this, but just to really highlight it again, that we were really proud to be able to be selected as Citrix's Partner of the Year for EMEA. And this has really given us some great access to some capabilities that we can help with anything that you want to do that's Citrix related. So we've got some, excuse me, some really good discounted Citrix direct consultancy that we can offer. There's early access programs that we can give to you specifically around secure private access, and architecture workshops that we can offer free of charge that might be really beneficial to you and your business. So as a follow-up from today, if you do want an individual demo or want to have a look at the possibility of a proof of concept, remember it's cloud-based, so it'd be very, very easy to set up. We can easily get something going with you and help sponsor that. We also offer a modern workplace advisory service that will look into all areas of your modern workplace investments to see how something like this, along with other investments, could be something that could be really interesting for your business. So yeah, that's just the things we wanted to highlight. A couple of questions that we have from the floor that maybe Andy or Justin might be able to come back to was on, is this just not Citrix Workspaces? How is this different from Citrix Workspaces?
It's not virtualization.
It's any application, whereas historically it would have been Citrix, a Citrix storefront or workspace, and that providing only access to those virtualized applications. This is an agent-based or agentless solution that provides, it could even be accessed just to a single application. But
there is some logic in the question, actually, so to be fair. So within what was Workspace, there used to be, just to go back in history, something called Citrix Workspace Access, CWA, and that was for web and SaaS apps. And that's been pulled out of the kind of virtualization product and sort of stood on its own as a separate product. But other than just pulling it out, making it multi-protocol, so it's not just web protocol, as Justin just said, it's got a ZTNA engine and policy engines slapped around it. So there's a whole bunch of things that's been added to the product as part of the change. And I think, as we tried to show with the demo, it's not kind of a virtualization is the only way to solve things. We've got other ways to do things now. So it kind of, I think it really broadens the portfolio in a lot of ways, but then maybe I'm a bit biased.
Maybe, but that's a great question, and that's one that we've had more than once. But yeah, we would be more than happy to sit you through an actual demonstration, live demonstration, as opposed to one that involves slides. But clearly, we're limited by what we can deliver online. And but yeah, we'd be more than happy to take you through a demo to showcase the differences.
Yeah, and I think it's quite clear that this is a secure access like gateway, as you kind of highlighted before, rather than just a portal. So it's moved on a little more from what I recall of what Citrix Workspace Access was. But yeah, good question. If I have Citrix already, can I get access to this? So I take it if they're talking about if they have Citrix from a virtual apps and desktops point of view, what would they need to do to get access to this kind of technology?
So the product is called Citrix Secure Private Access, and it's just another tile within the Citrix Cloud options. So there is a whole raft of licensing options for kind of Citrix virtualization. There's lots of different derivatives, and that's all been changed to a kind of the new branding is DAS, isn't it? Desktop as a Service is the kind of VDI name that they're using now. And there's various bundles. Some of it include secure private access and some don't. And in some cases, you only get like a standard or there's two editions of secure private access. So some of the sort of sexy ZTNA stuff is in the advanced edition, obviously. So again, it's probably, it requires a bit of a longer conversation because Citrix sometimes doesn't make the licensing as simple as it could be, but it's just, we're trying to offer lots of choice. That's the sort of goal here, I think, to try and make it flexible.
Absolutely. So depending on which particular version that you're on, we could look into what entitlements you have, but it would provide you with potentially with secure private access for your virtualized environment. You would then just need to look into the number of users that you're looking at delivering across the organization, and then add SPA for your non-virtualized users. But yeah, that's an exercise as part of Bytes' modern workplace advisory service that would come into play. They would look into what licensing that you've got, what your entitlements would be, and then work out where you want to get to, and then provide you with a path to get there. So again, that's something, just engage with the Bytes team, and they will keep you well informed.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think you know, we've got the ability to really sort of go through what your license entitlement is at the moment, and then really see whether this is something that could be tapped into. But yeah, it's good to hear that you've got it as part of your licensing program, even if there is a investment in DAS of some sort. So nice to see it's being introduced as part of the whole portfolio. Well, guys, really appreciate your efforts and your the demonstration and the presentation that we've gone through today. Really is an interesting product, and I'm sure it's going to be something that we'll hear lots of feedback on. So thanks very much for attending today. Do remember, we have a survey at the end of this webinar. If you could just make sure you try and fill in that survey for us and give some feedback, that'd be really good. And do sign up for the next event on the 28th of June, and we'll hope to see you there. But thanks very much for attending this morning. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you at the Bytes event.
Yeah, see you there.